As the vigilance at American airports and the borders grow stronger, drug smugglers continue to discover new ways to get the job done. However, the mind-blowing thing is not the fact that they can pull this off, but the lengths these guys are willing to go to work this out. In several cases, the authorities have been able to beat them to their game. But we've got to agree that many times each new scheme turns out more effective than the last, while many others have just been completely insane. That said, these are some of the very insane ways criminals smuggle drugs into the United States. Keep in mind that these are just a few that we could fit into a video because there are many more we haven't heard about. So, make sure to stick around till the end of the video to see how far these criminals are ready to go. Are you ready to find out? Let's get into it. Drones. With outstretched arms, we welcome tech and all it has to offer into our world. And today, everyone has taken full advantage of it. In January 2015, the Tijuana police went ahead to inspect a drone that crashed at the US-Mexico border, and no one prepared them for what they found. On proper inspection, the officers found that the drone had been packed with about 6 pounds of crystal meth. This case in 2015 was the first of its kind, but this drug-laden drone case was not the last. Just about 7 months later that same year, Border Patrol security cameras had spotted 2 men taking out a package from a drone. This drone had crossed the United States border near Calexico. Once the duo was apprehended, it was discovered that they had about 28 pounds of heroin. The drone system may seem like the perfect means to reduce the chances of getting caught. However, these people fail to consider that someone has to physically take out these drugs once they land. But as we mentioned at the start, everyone has taken full advantage of these tech gadgets. So, while these criminals found a way to make it work for them, the authorities also gave it a shot. They made use of their drones to patrol borders and monitor the movements and happenings on the borders. This is mostly because drone mules have become more prevalent, and even more, in the past couple of years, we have had several drug lords who have gone as far as commissioning custom drones from cartel engineers. These custom drones are designed to carry even more weight and fly higher or faster, so keep in mind that while these gadgets have done great good for our society, it's also been used to earn these drug lords a whole lot of money. The elderly. It wouldn't be the first time these criminals would take advantage of unsuspecting elderly people, and the case of 2016 wasn't any different. After being locked up for 13 months for narcotics trafficking, 74-year-old Ralph Soles was finally released. After spending those months behind bars, Soles was forced to start his life over as he had lost his home and everything. Seeing that he had nothing else to lose, the man made the bold decision to tell his story to the world. This was one story that proved just how far these smugglers would go to make sure they made the dough. Mr. Soles had received an email from a potential investor in his company. From this email, a friendship started to the point of flying out to South Africa to meet in person. On arrival, Mr. Soles was informed that his friend had been called away to Fiji, and Mr. Soles was now to meet him in this new location. Turns out, Mr. Soles was to bring with him a suitcase which was said to contain clothes. Unknown to the poor man, the bag had been filled with a stash of drugs, making Mr. Soles an accomplice to drug smuggling. Unfortunately, this tactic has continued even in recent times, with many elderly people being tricked. They are told that they are transporting random items, only to find out later that these were not so random. And even worse, they ended up going behind for something they knew nothing about. Based on the records released by U.S. officials, over 30 senior citizens are presently behind bars after getting themselves hooked on such scams. Shoe insoles. This may have seemed like a perfect disguise. I mean, no one would have thought of searching shoes. But think again, because this Guyanese citizen in February 2017 also thought it was a brilliant idea to smuggle cocaine in his shoes through JFK Airport, New York. However, it didn't take so much time to bust him up. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers, Amaziah Hohenurk had just arrived on a flight from Georgetown, Guyana. After much sniffing around, it was discovered that Hohenurk had about 6 pairs of shoes which contained about 4 pounds of cocaine. The investigation also revealed that the substance was worth a street value of about $67,000. He eventually ended up facing federal narcotics charges. Tunnels. We've talked about a few ways these criminals move their stash around, and another interesting way is underground. Of course, we know they'd go very far to move the stash around, but how far? In 1990, a tunnel 273 feet under the ground from a wealthy home in Agua Prieta, Mexico, was discovered to be connected to a warehouse in Arizona. And unlike any regular tunnel, this was quite furnished with electrical lighting, a drainage system, and a trolley for transportation. Now, someone did put in a lot of work to make sure these substances got to their destination safely. Or did they? While this tunnel may have somehow been discovered, we have to believe that they put in a lot of work. It was said that the tunnel had some sort of hidden switch in the Mexican home that, when activated, boosted a pool table and concrete slab in the air, giving way to the narrow shaft down below. Another insane tunnel was discovered in April 2016. This particular tunnel ran half a mile from a house in Tijuana, Mexico, directly to an industrial property in San Diego. This was yet another cool tunnel since the one discovered in the 90s. The tunnel was furnished with lighting, rails, and even a ventilation system. All of these were put in place to transport crazy amounts of drugs at a time. We've got to agree that when it comes to things like these people do not fail to show us how creative they can get. Rocker panels. In case you aren't quite familiar with what a rocker panel is, this is the area below the doors of your car. When you climb in and out of your car, you most likely lift your feet over it. Now, on a normal basis, you wouldn't imagine anyone considering this as a perfect hiding spot. But if there's anything we've learned so far, it's not to underestimate these drug dealers and how they think. In October 2018, about 9 individuals were arrested after conspiring to sneak meth into Hawaii. These substances had been disguised as decorative artifacts like statues and Aztec calendars, all of which were hidden in the panels. Balloons. Before we get into this one, we must put out a viewer's discretion. So, if you are easily triggered by strange activities or have a weak stomach, then you might just want to skip to the end. That aside, we've already agreed that these people would do anything they can to smuggle drugs in and out of the country, and they would do this even if anything meant using their bodies. In these cases, they ingest tightly wrapped balloons filled with drugs and smuggle them into their stomach. That made you cringe, considering how disgusting it is. However, that's not the biggest issue, as this act is more dangerous than it is disgusting. In 2015, on a flight going from Dublin to Lisbon, a 24-year-old suddenly became distressed and almost immediately collapsed to the ground. The young man was eventually found dead after one of the 80 pellets with about 2 pounds of cocaine burst in his stomach. Just like that, the man's life was brought to a sudden end, and the substances, well, never got delivered. While these cases may have been some of the most creative things you probably never could have imagined, we've got to ask, how far is too far with these guys? Well, I guess we can only stick around to find out. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell notification so you never miss an upload. See you next time.